What's up, guys? Welcome back to part 2 of me reacting to your Beyblade hot takes. Just like we did in part 1, I put up a community post asking for your hottest takes, and you guys delivered. We got over 400 comments on that post, which is amazing. We have a ton of hot takes to go over today, so let's just jump right in. Also, sorry in advance if I mispronounce any names. First take comes from Random Talks Central, saying that Jinga is the best written character of Season 1, and I have to agree. Jinga's character overall is a mixed bag, but if we're solely zooming in on Metal Fusion, he's one of the best written characters in the show. Like we see here, he has a detailed backstory, his internal conflict of feeling like everything Ryuga's doing is his fault, and getting back the Forbidden Bay is his responsibility, everything with his dad, all the setbacks. I mean, this is some of the most development we've gotten in Beyblade. And for the second take, I agree as well. Season 1 feels a lot more grounded. We're kind of just in Metal Bay City. We're not going all over the world facing different teams or looking for legendary bladers. We're kind of just here. I feel like it's a little easier to tell the story when there isn't so much going on. And to tie this back to the first take, I think Jinga's character tells the same story. His writing in Metal Fusion is easily better than his writing in Metal Masters or Metal Fury, and that's because Season 1 is so much more grounded and it focused more on his character. Next up, we got Cool Awesome Geometry Dash saying that Masamune is the strongest non-legendary blader, and I don't usually have an answer when it comes to the strongest non-legendary blader debate. It's difficult for me because I feel like we didn't see enough non-legendary blader fights in Metal Fury, but regardless, I think my top 3 in no specific order would be Tsubasa, Yu, and Masamune. Now, for Masamune, he's the non-legendary blader that we saw the most of, and if you ask me, I think the show was maybe trying to tell us that he is the strongest one. He got that huge arc where everyone thought he was going to be the next legendary blader, he got a new Beyblade, and he battled against 2 of them. No other non-legendary blader got this type of attention, so due to lack of evidence, I'm fine with putting Masamune number 1 for that reason alone. He also went toe-to-toe with King, which is pretty convincing, but let me know what you guys think about that one. But moving on, we have a take from Hamza saying that we should have seen at least one battle where a non-legendary blader beats a legendary blader. This one's interesting because it's definitely possible. Like, I'd put quite a few non-legendary bladers above Yuki, but I guess that's pretty obvious. However, in terms of a writing decision, I'm going to disagree. We wanted the whole legendary blader concept to feel really cool. I mean, these are 10 guys who were chosen by the heavens to save the world. So I understand why the writers didn't make any of them lose to non-legendary bladers. But if Metal Fight were to have continued with a Season 4 right after Metal Fury, then I would agree and I would say we would have to bridge that gap. Because if you want a good story moving forward, you would have to let some non-legendary bladers catch up to the level of the legendary bladers and even surpass it. Moving on, we have a take from the debaters saying that Faust is stronger than Yuki. I would agree with this one based off of what we saw from both of them, but ultimately, I guess it comes down to how strong the Star Fragment actually is. After all, the Star Fragment allowed Yuki to go toe-to-toe with Ryuga, even if it was only for a bit. So, do you think an outburst like this could rip a hole through the spiral dimension? I don't know. Like, it's definitely possible, but unfortunately I feel like there's no guaranteed answer. Then the second take is something I've come to terms with recently. Maybe some of y'all remember this video, where I'm basically arguing that Kyoya won in the final battle against Jinga. I thought I brought up some good points, but people were quick to remind me of what Benkei said in Shogun Steel, which kind of shuts down my entire argument. So yeah, I'll take the L right there. Kyoya probably didn't win, but I do think they tied. Next up, we got Anonymous saying that Benkei should have gotten some sort of upgrade. So I'm assuming we're talking about a Masamune type upgrade, and I guess I'd be down for this. I mean, why not? If you really think about it, the 4 horsemen of OG bladers in Metal Fight are Jinga, Kyoya, Kenta, and Benkei. Besides Madoka, who didn't battle, this was the OG group, and out of all of them, Benkei is the only one who never got any type of upgrade. So I'd be down for an upgrade, but I feel like you could also just have him be a little more involved with the story. Like, what if Benkei was the one to get Kyoya back on track after his crash out on Mist Mountain? Now, I love that Yu was the one to do this, and I don't really want to take that away from him, but Benkei would be great in this role. It would be a great full circle moment in my opinion, but let me know what y'all think. Next up, we got Master Windu saying that Kyoya versus Damien is Kyoya's best fight, and it's Kyoya's best feat. And as a Kyoya fan, I love this take. This battle was a beautiful representation of how hard work and effort surpasses the artificial, easy way of doing things. And when you put things into context, this is Kyoya's most impressive win on screen. Notable Kyoya victims like Aguma and Dynamis are definitely stronger than Damien, but Kyoya beating Damien in Metal Masters is still the better win. In Metal Fury, Aguma and Dynamis are definitely top 10, but they're more in the 8 to 10 range, so not very high. Maybe Dynamis is a bit higher, but the Dark Power version that Kyoya fought, I think is like 8 to 10. But if you look at Damien in Metal Masters, he's top 5. So that makes this battle the better win for Kyoya, if that makes sense. Another way to put it is Kyoya beating Damien in Metal Masters would be equivalent to him beating Chris or King in Metal Fury. With that being said, I disagree with this next one. It was a surprise attack for Kyoya, and we wanted to make Aguma seem like a threat. Beyblade has a thing for making new characters seem insanely overpowered, so I'm okay with this. I 100% agree with this one. I agree here too. The plot kind of needed him to lose to Selene, but for Klaus, I think a tie would make sense. And then this last one is pretty interesting. I myself am very guilty of throwing around the plot armor allegations, but when you put it like that, I definitely see what you mean. Besides the Kyoya fight, there's always a decent enough reason for Jinga to win his battles. But moving on, we got Dancing Foxfire saying that Shogun Steel was more enjoyable than Metal Fury. And this one is more subjective, but I agree with most of the points you brought up. I definitely share the sentiment regarding the Dark Nebula and Hades Inc. retcon. Maybe that deserves a video. And I actually really liked the synchro mechanic. It was very unique and overall just a cool concept. Next up, we got I'm Not Batman. I agree with this one, although I don't really know where he would fit. Can't really comment here, but I will say Season 2 is pretty good. I agree here, and I might actually agree with you here too. It's been a very long time since I've watched Shogun Steel, but I do remember Kira being a pretty cool final boss. And on the other hand, Ziggurat and Faust are kind of just okay antagonists. I really like Twisted Tempo. I think Toby turning into Faust is a cool concept, like someone turning into someone else through the arrangement system, but Faust wasn't a fantastic antagonist. Next up, we got Yasir saying that Dynamis has the highest defensive power and maybe a top 4 legendary blade. Now, I know most people have King, Chris, and Kenta above Dynamis, but I don't really hate this take. I do agree Dynamis is very underrated. I fully believe he would have beaten Jenga had the battle continued, and yes, his defensive power is the real deal. And I will say that Dynamis being top 4 isn't unrealistic in the slightest. The performance he had at Mist Mountain was insanely impressive, but unfortunately, that's all we really saw of him. Right after that, he gets infected with a version of the Dark Power, and it's pretty clear that he's been nerfed. If I remember right, this Dark Power didn't give him those brutal, destructive attacks like we saw from Tsubasa or Ryuga. Rather, his version of the Dark Power actively gets in his way and makes it harder for him to battle. So, the version of Dynamis at Mist Mountain, I think, could easily be in that top 5 range, but we just didn't see enough of him. Like, if this version of Dynamis fought one more pretty strong legendary blader, I think we could easily know where to accurately rate him, but for now it's kind of speculative. Next up, we got Turakish saying that Julian should have beaten Damien in the World Championships. I'm gonna have to disagree from a writing perspective. Jinga and Team Japan already beat Julian and Excalibur, so we probably don't need that matchup again, but I will say this take brings up an interesting conversation. This loss for Julian is so exaggerated. Let's just think about it like this. Jinga barely defeats Julian, and I mean that match was very close. Then we fast forward to Julian versus Damien, and Damien absolutely dismantles Julian with his friends, and then we fast forward and Jinga beats Damien. Now, I'm not upset that this is how it unfolded, but you can see how that doesn't really make much sense. Jinga barely beats Julian gets destroyed by Damien, and then Jinga goes on to beat Damien even though he didn't really get stronger. It's not the most consistent, but we had to hype up Damien, and having him destroy Julian with the Cetus pair is a great way to do it. But I'd even argue that if we had seen Damien from the beginning of Metal Masters all the way leading up to the Julian match, this battle would have been a lot closer. The truth is, we had to make this a very one-sided match because we needed to establish Damien as a massive threat because he is the final antagonist of the tournament. But once again, if we had seen him battling all along leading up to the finals, kind of like how we saw Ryuga in Battle Bladers, his win against Julian would have been so much closer. But once again, I get it, we had to hype up Damien. So next up, we got Georgia saying that you should have had an arc with Ryuga instead of Kenta. And this one really surprised me. I've actually never thought of this possibility before now. And look, it would pain me to take this arc away from Kenta, because seriously, it makes his character. Without it, he's just a Jinga groupie. But I can't lie, it would make a lot of sense for you to be the one chasing after Ryuga instead of Kenta. He used to idolize him back in the Dark Nebula before realizing that Jinga and having fun was the better path. And a lot of the Beyblade community thinks that Yu was done dirty in Metal Masters and Metal Fury, but if we were to give him the arc that Kenta went on in Metal Fury, I think that would fix everything. But then again, I love this arc for Kenta, so I'm not sure I would make the switch, but at the same time, I wouldn't mind seeing Yu in this role. So next up, we got Rapid6223, saying that Masamune is underrated and he's top 10 in Metal Masters. So I'll agree with you that he's underrated, but I don't think he's top 10. Off the top of my head, I've got Faust, Ryuga, Jinga, Kyoya, Damien, Deshayan, Nile, Julian, Tsubasa, Jack, and that's already 10. The competition is pretty stiff in Metal Masters, and I just don't think he makes the cut. And now, moving on to the final take of the video. I'm sorry I don't know how to pronounce your name, and I wouldn't want to mess it up, but there are some great takes here. First off, from what I can remember, I did like Shogun Steel. Obviously, I don't think it was as good as the first 3 seasons, but then again, I don't think it was ever given a fair enough shot. The characters were not given the same amount of attention and depth as older characters were, and a lot of that may stem from it only being, I think, 26 episodes. I'd love an upgrade for Tsubasa, whether that means he becomes a legendary blader, or if it's just a mechanical upgrade, or what if Eagle evolved in Metal Masters after he conquered the Dark Power during the Sophie and Wales battle. I think that's honestly the perfect time to give him an upgrade. Take number 3, I also agree with, especially the shoe point. I always thought that it should have been a mystery for the characters in the show, and for the audience like you and me, so kind of like an Obito situation from Naruto. So yeah, either go the full mystery route, or you could just have it be a mystery for no one. Like, as soon as the group sees Red Eye, have them recognize him as Shu. I would be okay with one or the other. Maybe I'd prefer the mystery for everyone because of the shock factor. And then I'm not exactly sure where a rematch between Hyoma and Reggie would fit, but I wouldn't mind seeing more of both of them. This is a pretty specific example, but I would pay some good money to get an episode or 2 of Hyoma tracking Ryuga down and seeing everything that happened afterwards. Like, how did he find Ryuga? What was that conversation like? I'm sure I'm not the only one who would love to see that play out. But yeah, guys, that is going to be the video. That was part 2 of me reacting to your Beyblade hot takes. We had some fantastic takes for part 2, so let me know if you want to see a part 3. These are always so fun to make. Also, let me know any other videos you might want to see. As always, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video.